Auburn, Alabama is home to Auburn University, which is a major football school. In a college town, it happens that students sometimes may go off and, they may be missing for a little while, but they come back. Lori was a student at Auburn University, and she had recently graduated.
June 10th, 2006, which is the fateful day in Lori's life.
We were gonna have drinks at my house. We were gonna have rum runners, I believe, and watch a movie and just kind of hang out, do girl time. She called me around 6:30 and said, I'm gonna stop by the store, pick up the drink mixes, and then I'll be headed to your house. And then the phone rang about 30 minutes later. It rang once or twice. I answered, no one was there.
How many times had she simply not showed up
Never.
and not called you?
Never.
My daughter was a very good person, a kind person, a loving girl, a very studious student. She loved sports, loved her dog. She had a little Yorkie named Peanut. That was her baby.
When did you realize that something was wrong?
I was at work, a lady called, I believe it was her boss, and she told me that I just want to tell you your daughter Lori has not showed up for work, and right away bells and whistles went off. I called her and she didn't answer her phone.
I called her house several times, left voicemails on her home answering machine.
You go over to her mobile home.
The door was unlocked, which was not like her. The air conditioner was running. Her dog Peanut was in the crate. We walked through the house. She wasn't there.
What are you thinking?
Something's terribly wrong. There is no way she would have left Peanut.
This is it. It's about 4:40 a.m., 4 days after Lori is missing. The car was right here, dead in the center, and engulfed in flames.
Was Lori in this car?
Lori was not in the vehicle.
There was no trace of her whatsoever. I mean, none.
Just vanished.
Just vanished.
And nobody knows what happened to Lori Slazinski.
I know somebody that knows.
Rick Ennis.
Your daughter had no idea about his past.
No.
I met Rick Ennis when he was 12 years old. He's sitting back there in that seat behind you. And I said, where are your parents? He looks right back at me and he says, I killed them both.
I can still see her smile. Her smile is just etched in my memory.
To this day, Lindsay Braun is haunted by the final call from Lori Slazinski on June 10th, 2006, when they were supposed to get together for drinks and a movie.
That last call, did it indicate it was her phone?
Yes.
She calls and it hangs up.
Yes.
And no one's there.
Just no one was there. It was just dead end.
Did you call her right back?
I did. No answer.
Lori and Lindsay became fast friends when they met junior year at Auburn University in 2002.
I remember the day I met her, we just kind of immediately clicked. I could just tell that she was a warm person, very friendly, just outgoing, loving, all those good things.
Lori's family, her older brother Paul, and their parents, Arlene and Casey, were actually from New York State. They headed south to rural Alabama farm country when Lori was 13 years old.
She loved animals. We always had animals in our house.
Lori's mother, Arlene.
A very studious student. She was a good girl.
When she enrolled in nearby Auburn University, her parents bought Lori a mobile home to live off campus in a manicured trailer park popular with students.
So from valedictorian of her high school class, was it tough for you to see your baby girl leave the house and head off to university?
Oh, yeah, it was very tough. I called her every day. She's like, Mom, this has got to stop. I was like, but you're my baby and I worry about you. Just don't worry about me, I'm fine.
Lori majored in psychology and minored in criminal justice. She graduated with honors.
There she is with Mom and Dad. She looks so happy there.
She was over the moon happy.
After graduation, Lori and Lindsay started working together at a local mental health facility.
Did you sense that she had any enemy in this world?
No.
The day that Lori disappeared, June 10th, 2006. Was anyone with Lori that day?
Rick was at her house.
Rick was Daryl Richard Ennis.
When I had spoken to her, he was in the background.
Lori got to know Rick back when she was still a student. She hung out at the local bowling alley where he worked.
I didn't know much about him at all, except he was her friend.
Arlene says just before Christmas in 2005, Lori asked if Rick could join them.
She asked me, she said, Mom, he has no family. Can I invite him? She kind of, felt bad that he was going to spend Christmas alone. He was friendly, very polite.
Lindsay says Lori often spent time with Rick, so she wasn't surprised that he had been at Lori's home the day she disappeared.
They were friends, so I wasn't concerned.
But now you're at home,
Yes.
waiting for Lori to come over.
Yes.
And you went to bed that night thinking,
I hope she's okay.
But the next morning, Lindsay started to worry.
I called her house several times, left voicemails on her home answering machine. Hey, Lori, checking on you. Are you okay? Where are you?
you went to work on that Monday, right?
Yeah. She wasn't there. In my mind, something's wrong. I had Rick's number, so I did text him and ask, have you seen Lori? Where is she? I'm worried about her. His conversation back was, no, I haven't, and I'm worried now too.
When Lori didn't show up at work a second day, that's when Lindsay headed to Lori's home
No one answered.
and found her dog Peanut in his crate.
I'm an animal lover, so the very first thing I did was let the dog out.
That's when she noticed something else strange. Lori was missing 3 days, but the crate was spotless, and Peanut seemed happy and appeared to be well fed, as though someone had taken care of him. And there was more.
One thing I remember about Peanut is he wouldn't walk on tile. So she had these rugs in her kitchen, and he would hop on the rugs, and the rugs were gone. I noticed that immediately. Her outside trash can was missing. She had one that she had like yard tools in, and the answering machine had actually been unplugged, so those messages were not there.
By this time, Lori's mother heard that she hadn't been showing up at work.
I have got to go to Auburn and see what's going on, where she is, because I called her and she didn't answer her phone.
She headed off on an agonizing drive, calling her husband and alerting the police, finally arriving at her daughter's home.
And when the police got there, what was their attitude?
Well, you know, they were like, she's got to be missing 48 hours, and they didn't really make a big deal out of it.
They wanted to just think she ran away.
Lori's parents could only wait for Lori to walk through the door or call. And finally, the phone rang late that afternoon. But Arlene says it wasn't Lori, it was her friend, Rick Ennis.
He said that Lori had gone to make a big drug deal.
What?
Yes. And I was like, there ain't no way. My daughter would not do anything like that.
Did you tell the police what he told you?
I didn't. Rick told them. And the police came to the trailer, banging on the door, and they raided the mobile home, and they found nothing.
Then, just before dawn, that's when Lori Slazinski's missing car suddenly exploded into a fireball on a desolate dead end outside a construction site.
The feelings were just unbelievable of fear and knowing something really bad has happened.
Who would set her car on fire?
Exactly.
And why?
The investigation shifted from a missing person to a possible homicide. Investigators dug into Rick's tip about Lori dealing drugs, but found no evidence, none, that he was telling the truth. Now, investigators started digging deeper into Rick Ennis. They wanted to know if he was hiding something from them.
Did you have any sense as to why Rick Ennis didn't have a family?
No, I had no idea why at all.
Eventually you learned.
I did. It's beyond shocking. This is my daughter Lori's trailer.
And do you go into that trailer from time to time just to connect with her?
I do. Just go in there and think about the happier times.
This room, besides the memories, is also a solemn place because you believe some horrors went on in this room, correct?
Yes.
In the early days of the investigation, back in 2006, Arlene says she became suspicious of Rick Ennis when he told her that the night Lori disappeared, she had gone out to make a drug deal.
And why would he be doing that, do you think?
I think to take the heat off of him. I was thinking this guy is lying through his teeth.
Police suspected the same, but without direct evidence linking Rick Ennis to Lori's disappearance, police could not make an arrest, and the case quickly went cold.
Did Rick Ennis stick around town?
He was there for a couple of days, but within a week after his third interview, he left town. He never came back to Auburn again.
In 2016, 10 years after Lori disappeared, Mark Whitaker, a special agent with the Alabama State Bureau of Investigation, started a cold case unit. He chose the disappearance of Lori Slazinski as his first case.
Any estimate how many murder cases you've been involved with in your career?
Probably about 100.
Where does this one rank in terms of fascination for you as an investigator?
It's number one. It was a very difficult case because there was no body. We don't know exactly what happened. And we don't know where she is.
But it didn't take long for Rick Ennis to become Whitaker's prime suspect.
We couldn't eliminate him. His inconsistencies in his statements made no sense whatsoever. We knew Lori was not a drug dealer. I mean, she vanished off the face of the earth when he's the last one to ever see her.
And when police spoke to Rick hours after Lori was reported missing, they noticed these scratches on his hands and arms.
Right here, that is a thumbprint where somebody's digging in there. She's fighting for her life and doing everything she can to get away from him.
In Rick's car, there were handcuffs, this knife, and cleaning supplies. And they soon learned something startling about Rick's past.
Turned into one of the most bizarre cases I've ever been associated with.
Former Alabama State Trooper John Clark.
I was patrolling this county when I got a call.
It was March 5th, 1993. The call from dispatch said a car had gone off this very highway and struck a fence.
And as my headlights take in the curve, I see it looks like a young boy with a backpack.
It's a 12-year-old, Rick Ennis, and he admits he had been driving the car. Clark searches his backpack.
The first thing I pull out is a kitchen knife about that long. There's some 12 gauge and some 22 caliber loose ammunition in the bottom of the bag. He's sitting back there in that seat behind you. And I said, "Where are your parents?" He looks right back at me and he says, "I killed them both."
I killed them both.
I killed them both. No tears, no emotion, nothing.
Clark then radioed for local police to get over to Ennis's home.
State troopers working a wreck involving a 12-year-old.
At the time, a show called MPD, the television series, was following the officers.
The boy's telling them that they've killed his daddy and mama.
Cameras entered the home of Rick's mother and stepfather. On the floor of a bedroom are two dead bodies.
There's pieces of a baseball bat in the bedroom that has quite a bit of blood on it.
Rick's own mother, Dolly Flowers, was shot in the face and then beaten to death with this baseball bat. Rick told investigators he covered her face with a velvet blanket and placed a rose on her chest.
Blood splatters on the walls, blood splatters on the door.
Rick's stepfather, Eddie Joe Flowers, was known as Elvis for his sideburns and colorful personality. Rick shot him in the face using this shotgun. Rick told cops he was mad that his parents planned to move. He said he didn't want to leave his school. For 2 days, investigators believe he lived with their bodies while continuing to go to school. Investigators say they found what they describe as Ennis's to-do list that included killing his 3 stepsisters.
So he wanted to kill all 3 of you?
Oh, yeah. I feel very blessed to be here and not to be one of his victims.
Donna Furr, Angela Flowers, and Tina Sexton are all Eddie's daughters. Tina was 20 when her dad was murdered.
It's changed everything. My dad was my world. I'm never getting to see him again.
The sisters say Dolly was a sweet, outgoing woman who met their father in church. Rick was the polar opposite.
Every time I would go and visit my dad and Dolly, he would go into his bedroom and close himself off.
He'd come out and eat, and then he'd go back in his room.
What is the longest conversation you ever had with him?
5 seconds, maybe.
He didn't talk to nobody.
What did your father think of Rick?
He just said, he's just a little different than y'all were when y'all were coming up. He just thought that they were in a new relationship and, you know, that he would outgrow it and things would get better over time.
But just 10 months after they married, the happy couple were dead.
He was 12 years old and had murdered 2 people, brutally murdered them.
At age 12, Rick Ennis couldn't be tried as an adult. He spent 9 years in juvenile detention in Alabama and was released after he turned 21. It was now up to Agent Whitaker and his team to determine whether Rick Ennis had murdered again.
Should juveniles convicted of murder get a second chance? Chat now with the 48 Hours team on Facebook and Twitter.
Agent Mark Whitaker knew what Rick Ennis did to his parents, and his instincts told him Ennis had done something horrible to Lori too. But now he had to prove it.
The burn site that's found on the 14th.
The car was right here, facing out back toward the bowling alley. There's nothing else around here at the time. There's not apartments. It's just a paved road.
The blaze destroyed whatever evidence there was in the car, but an investigator reported finding a tiny item on the ground nearby.
And he found a hand-rolled cigarette butt about right here, and he collected that. It was not tested. Kind of got lost in the shuffle. The case agent retired.
Whitaker's team now submitted it for testing. And there was this gas can that had been found nearby.
It was right in this area right here.
It looked like one that had been missing from the bowling alley where Rick had worked.
And it's right here, 1,000 yards from the bowling alley, 30 yards from a car.
Whitaker's partner, J.W. Barnes, showed us something that for police tied everything together. These railroad tracks.
These are the same tracks that go right by the bowling alley. They run right across the street from where Laurie's car was found burning.
I've always thought that's what Ennis used for transportation, was walking down the railroad tracks, because it's a straight shot and you're not going to be seen unless you want to be seen. And those railroad tracks run by Laurie's house.
And in that house were signs of a violent struggle, says Whitaker.
These areas you see right here that have been cut out, that's where the scuff marks were. They were black, just like the bottom of her shoes, and there was even some up as high here. So it's obviously, there was a struggle in here with somebody kicking their legs, probably up in the air.
Remember, Lori's dog Peanut seemed happy and taken care of.
My theory is that Rick Ennis stayed in the house.
After he had murdered Lori?
I believe so. It's the only way to explain it. We don't have a cause of death, but I've always thought that he strangled her. The scratches that he had all over his arm were just indicative of defense wounds when you're fighting somebody.
Whitaker says the phone in the corner of the bedroom was missing its cord.
And it was a long cord, and it ran all the way through the room.
And what do you think that cord was used for?
I think it was used to bound her.
To tie her up?
Yes, sir.
Could it have been used to strangle her?
Sure. That phone cord was missing.
That's not the only thing that was missing. There were those 3 rugs in the kitchen.
They were kind of strategically put out so that Peanut, Lori's dog, could hop through the linoleum and be back on carpet.
The rugs turned up, he says, a few years later.
Ennis had a former roommate who reached out to law enforcement and told them, hey, there's this guy left behind 3 rugs. Peter, I want to show you something else. Lori had a table set up about right here. And on this table, days before Lori went missing, a love letter was left here for her from Rick.
People who knew Lori said Ennis wanted to be more than just a friend. Police say Ennis told a buddy that Lori rejected him.
And he was devastated by that.
So do you believe this rejection may have been a motive for murder?
I think that's what sent him over the edge. I absolutely do.
Despite the mounting evidence, Agent Whitaker still needed something more that tied Ennis directly to the crime scene.
As far as I'm concerned, he is investigating this case like Lori is his own daughter. I mean, he has a picture of Lori in his house.
I've had it in my closet. It would make me think about her every day when I was getting ready for work. When I would put my ties on, I would just remember what I was supposed to be doing every single day.
And then...
It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and J.W. calls me.
J.W. Barnes found exactly what they needed in the case files, collecting dust for 10 years.
He goes, I just found a report that was in an envelope that hadn't been opened.
Whitaker could hardly believe it. When Lori disappeared in 2006, police collected evidence from her trailer. But by the time the results came in, no one followed up. The report contained critical evidence. Rick's DNA was identified in semen found on Lori's bedsheet and in blood on the interior of the front door. And it turned out his blood was also found on one of the rugs investigators say were in Lori's kitchen.
So you got his blood on a rug here. You've got his semen back there. You got his blood on a door. Most people's blood is not inside somebody else's home unless something really bad had happened.
12 years after Lori disappeared, there was now enough evidence to charge Rick Ennis with her murder. But by this time, Rick Ennis was happily engaged to school librarian Elena Atkinson and living 500 miles away in Virginia. He was designing and building portable living structures called yurts for Sharon Morley's company. Morley liked Ennis from the moment they met.
He was just so open and friendly and had a great sense of humor.
But on August 6, 2018, Rick's birthday, Morley saw a task force of lawmen arrive.
Walking out of the woods, they were hiding behind trees, they had the place surrounded.
It was a highlight of my career to make the phone call to Arlene and Casey Slasinski that morning to tell them that we just took Rick Ennis in custody for Lori's murder.
Was this kind of a bittersweet moment for you?
Most definitely, yes. I guess psychologically, I never accepted the fact that she really was gone. And I cried big time.
Later that month, Ennis appeared before an Alabama judge, with Lori's parents facing him.
I guess he kind of seemed surprised that we were there.
What did you want him to know?
That we finally got you. You're not going to get away with this.
News of Ennis's arrest quickly spread.
I read it, and I'm like thinking to myself, it's Rick.
Terry Booth says he was friends with Rick and suddenly remembered a conversation he had with him years earlier at a bar when he asked him why he left Alabama.
What did he say?
He just mainly said I had to get rid of a and I'm thinking, oh, this guy's just messing around with me.
But that changed when he learned of Rick's arrest.
And it was real. He wasn't joking. I couldn't sleep the whole night.
He called Whitaker's task force.
And it was just unbelievable what Ennis had told him.
But the most explosive news of all came later, and incredibly, while Whitaker was with Ennis at another court hearing.
An investigator from Auburn PD comes up to me and tells me, "You're not going to believe this. The hand-rolled cigarette butt next to the car has his DNA on it." I wanted to do a somersault in the courtroom, but I couldn't.
Everyone now was prepared to go to trial. But the courts quickly ground to a halt because of the pandemic. And Arlene Slazinski suffered more losses. First, her son to cancer, and then her husband, Casey, to COVID.
Got a call him. I think you better come. When I got there, he was gone.
You lose your daughter, you lose your son, and then you lose your husband. How do you go on with all this?
I guess my faith, my friends, family. And I just did not want to die not knowing what happened to my daughter or seeing justice being done.
But Rick Ennis was determined to prove police had it all wrong. And he wasn't the only one fighting to prove his innocence.
They have the wrong person. There's no way.
His fiancée, Elena Atkinson.
Do you believe Rick had anything to do with Lori's disappearance, with her death?
No, I do not. Not only do I believe Rick is innocent, I believe that he would have given his life for Lori if he had been there. That's the kind of person he is.
And she believes that despite the fact that she knows Rick murdered his mother and stepfather when he was 12.
People would wonder, why is it hard for you to believe that he could kill again?
She says Rick told her something about what happened with his mother, something that convinced her he had nothing to do with what happened to Lori.
Rick Ennis is one of the most compassionate, generous, kind people that I've ever known.
Elena Atkinson has been in love with Rick Ennis for 4 years.
I love his intelligence. I always joke with him and tell him I fell in love with his brain first.
But just 2 months into their romance, Elena, an amateur genealogist, was researching Rick's ancestry when she stumbled upon news that he had killed his mother and stepfather.
My first thought was, what in the world happened in his home life that pushed him to that point?
Rick would tell her something she didn't see in any article.
Rick, it's Peter Van Sant with 48 Hours.
Reached by phone, Rick told us what he insists happened.
I was molested by my mother.
Rick says his mother sexually abused him, and he snapped.
I exploded, and the result was that I took my mother's life, and then I took my stepmother's life.
But remember, back then, he told authorities he killed his parents because he didn't want to move.
I was deeply ashamed about my mother molesting me, and I had a really hard time talking about it.
Still, we could find no evidence to corroborate Rick's abuse allegation.
You know, Rick, I have to tell you, obviously, I have no idea what happened. A skeptic would say you've conveniently accused the mother that you murdered of molesting you when she can't defend herself. You understand how that's difficult for some to believe.
Well, I mean, it's something that I worked through with a psychiatrist. What I did when I was 12 is the greatest regret of my life.
Rick insists he's no longer that angry 12-year-old. Now 41, Rick Ennis would stand trial for yet another murder.
I never murdered Lori Slazinski. She was a very close, dear friend of mine. I never would have hurt her.
Prosecutor Jessica Ventieri is sure that is a lie. But at trial, she wouldn't be allowed to tell the jury anything about Rick's past.
This is by far the most complicated case of my career.
he becomes obsessed with her.
Ventieri's first hurdle was convincing the jury that Lori was, in fact, dead. She called Lori's mother, Arlene, to the stand.
Did she make contact with you after her brother died?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever received a birthday card?
No, ma'am.
A Mother's Day card? Have you ever heard from your daughter in any way since that Thursday before she disappeared?
No, ma'am.
Lindsay Braun was next, seemingly setting up a motive, telling the jury that Lori rejected Rick.
She told me about a letter that he had written her.
Was it a love letter?
Yes. She told me that she wasn't interested in him that way.
And Terry Booth would take the stand to recount that troubling remark he said Rick made.
He had strangled a that she was a white piece of trailer park trash.
The district attorney built her case with testimony about the scuff marks on the wall and the blood in Lori's trailer, Rick's semen on her bed, and the cigarette butt, with Rick's DNA found near Lori's scorched car.
But they've got problems with this evidence.
But defense attorney William Watley claimed that hand-rolled cigarette was planted, arguing police could have taken it from Rick's home.
That cigarette butt didn't come from Bernsey.
The defense suggested Lori was responsible for her own disappearance. They portrayed her as a drug dealer.
You knew that Lori had grown marijuana?
Yes.
Lindsay insisted, however, that it was only for Lori's personal use.
For herself, so she didn't have to purchase any.
But to drive home their points, Watley called Rick Ennis himself to the stand.
Spent a lot of time with her.
Rick insisted he had no reason to hurt Lori.
Did you write a letter to Lori?
Yes, sir, I did. I asked her if she wanted to date. It would have been a month or two before she went missing. I'm not certain.
But even though she turned him down, Rick says they were still intimate.
Now, did you ever have sex with Lori?
Yes, sir.
So what about what he said to Terry Booth? Ennis says it never happened.
Did you ever go out drinking with Terry Booth?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell Terry Booth that you strangled someone?
Yes, sir.
Rick, I want to show you some photographs here.
And those rugs given to police by his former roommate, Rick claims they were not from Lori's trailer.
Where did you get these rugs from?
Target.
Did you get any of those from Lori?
Yes, sir.
Rick says Lori was fine when he left her that Saturday. He says he headed off to sell some weed, and he claims she was off to do the same.
The last time you saw Lori, did you have any kind of an argument with her?
No, sir.
Did you break into Lori's trailer that Saturday?
I did not.
Did you kidnap Lori?
No, sir.
Did you kill Lori?
I did not.
Did you burn Lori's car?
No, sir.
So what about the knife, handcuffs, and cleaning items in his car? Rick says it had nothing to do with Lori. He was moving things from his apartment. And those scratches on him, back in 2006, police say he had no explanation. But at the trial, he had an answer.
I got them for playing with my dog.
Ventieri barely made it to the podium to start her cross-examination.
Is there anything else you'd like to blame on the dog?
Ventieri questioned Rick about that blood on Lori's door.
Blood in Lori's trailer has your DNA in it. How did that get there?
I have no idea.
And the question Ventieri really wanted an answer for, she never got.
Where did you drop Lori's body?
I didn't dump Lori's body anywhere.
Who did then?
I have no idea.
Both sides had their final chance to persuade the jury. Defense attorney Watley told the jurors there wasn't any evidence that a crime had even been committed.
There's no evidence that Lori was kidnapped. There's no evidence that she was forcibly taken against her will.
Ventieri attacked Rick's defense.
The fact that they can sit there and say that their client told the truth about anything is laughable. This is a gouge in hand who was obsessed with you.
Ventieri insisted that the volume of evidence against Rick Ennis was overwhelming, even if police still couldn't find Laurie's remains. And she reminded the jury that Laurie would never just take off.
She would never, ever, ever leave Peanut Pond. Never.
After 7 days of testimony, it was now up to the jury to decide.
I'm terrified. I only get one shot at this.
But you just never know what a jury's going to do.
Do you believe Rick Ennis is a changed man? See more of the investigation into Laurie's disappearance at 48hours.com.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, y'all reached a verdict in this case. Okay, can you hand that to the bailiff, please, ma'am?
When the jury came back into the courtroom, did you look at their faces?
Yes, I did. It was very hard to read their faces. I still wasn't sure what the verdict was going to be.
Okay, please stand.
Nearly 16 years after Laurie Slazinski vanished, the jury reached a verdict during their second day of deliberations.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell Richard Ennis, guilty of the offense of capital murder.
Guilty of the murder of Laurie Slazinski.
Give me a sense of what that meant to you.
Sheer relief, joy that he was finally convicted and would never get to do this to anyone else again.
I'm thrilled that we were able to bring justice for Laurie after such a long time.
Immediately following the jury's verdict, DA Ventieri went to Arlene with a proposal. Rick was now facing a possible death sentence, but that would trigger years of appeals and legal wrangling. To spare Arlene all that, Ventieri suggested offering Rick life without parole. Arlene agreed.
It says the court that you be in prison in the penitentiary of the state of Alabama for a term of life without the possibility of parole.
Elena Atkinson was stunned.
Just complete shock, disbelief. I was devastated.
She was so certain Rick would be exonerated, she'd made plans to celebrate. A celebration, Rick told us, that he would be part of.
I thought that we were going to go and have a nice dinner and that I was going to get to start my life over.
Arlene headed home to savor the bittersweet victory.
After this verdict, did you have a conversation with Laurie?
I did. I just said, Laurie, justice has finally come. We've waited for this for a long time, and I hope you're all celebrating in heaven with the entire family. And I wish you were all here to see this day.
This tragic murder, the ripple effects across your family is just incredible.
It has left a very large void in my life. I was getting ready to retire. I mean, I could have been enjoying my grandchildren possibly, just spending time with my daughter, who I loved. This is Laurie at her trailer, and Peanut, who she absolutely adored, and vice versa. Well, we brought Peanut home with us, and he stayed with us till he was, I guess, about 16 years old, and he died. Every time we mentioned Laurie's name, he would, I don't care where he was in the house, it was like he just heard her name and he'd run in there like, where is she? It just totally amazed me that he never forgot her, never. Did you ever think that 6 years ago we would be here today?
With her husband and both her children gone, this tragic story has brought new friendships into Arlene's life.
Mark Whitaker is my hero. Him and his wife are like family to me now. This was on her graduation day, Casey, her and me.
It's a great photo.
And this was her a month before she disappeared at her cousin Jennifer's wedding with her cousin Thomas.
Wow. Not a care in the world.
No.
She's one of the bravest women that I've ever met. You showing all these to me just makes everything more real for me. Beautiful girl. Thanks for sharing those with me.
You're welcome.
I could tell she seems to be happier now.
I can't thank you enough for it. It was just
love you.
wonderful. I love you too.
You're one tough lady.
Yeah.
A wife and mother was said to have gone for a bike ride and never returned.
The initial thought is kidnapping.
She had used a spy pen to make secret recordings.
It's like James Bond.
Would they help solve the case?
Nothing is what it seems.
48 Hours, Saturday on CBS.
When you hear the name Gabby Petito, what comes to mind?
A young, aspiring blogger who loved life, loved adventures, a girl who was on the cusp of beginning life and whose life was tragically taken from her.
The FBI announcing a medical examiner says the body found in Wyoming was indeed that of Gabby Petito, the coroner calling her death a homicide.
Brian Laundrie, I believe, made his decision to kill himself after he had killed Gabby Petito.
Investigators say human remains found in Florida this week are those of Brian Laundrie, the only person of interest in the death of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Gabby Petito's been gone for over a year now. Is this case over?
No, this case is far from over. My name is Mary Fulginiti, and I'm a former federal prosecutor and defense attorney. There are still a lot of questions for Gabby's parents. The primary one being, would Gabby Petito still be alive today if the case had been handled differently?
Hello, and good morning.
We came to know Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie because they were putting themselves out there in social media, documenting their travels throughout America, this young couple in love, living out of their van, seeing what the world had to offer, living the dream. My name is Dr. Chris Mohandi, and I'm a forensic psychologist. But what we come to learn is that that was a veneer.
All the chocolate melted.
I know, it's a river of chocolate.
Much as I know Gabby and feel like I know Brian, you just never know when it comes to relationships.
We've been lucky so far at all the places we've stayed, but I'd say this is one of the best so far.
Anyone that's met the two of them has been like, they seem like such a nice couple. But a lot of couples look nice on Instagram.
About a month into their trip, Gabby and Brian have a lot of arguments. It gets physical. A witness reports it to the Moab police.
Hey, how are you? I'm with Moab Police.
They respond, and now we see that there's trouble in paradise.
He locked me out of the car and told me to go take a breather, but I didn't want to take a breather.
I'm fine, and I look at it. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I have to get so puffy.
When you look back, could that Moab police stop been a game changer?
Oh, absolutely. It's hard not to wonder what would have happened to Gabby if either Gabby or Brian had been arrested that day.
Two people went on a trip, one person returned, and that person that returned isn't providing us any information.
Where's Gabby?
We believe the circumstantial evidence demonstrates that the Laundrie family was aware that their son had murdered Gabby and that they were aware of the location of her remains.
They refused to communicate to the Petito family. As human beings, how could somebody not pick up that phone and say, I'm so sorry, we don't know what happened, what can we do to help? And the only reason why you wouldn't is if obviously something went afoul.
Gabby is the most amazing person I've ever met.
I've never felt a pain like this. I have screamed into the air what happened because I want answers. We will get justice for her no matter what.
Gabby Petito's road trip in the summer of 2021 started as an adventure story.
I love the band.
Months later, it turned into a nationwide search for a missing woman.
The search for missing 22-year-old Gabby Petito is now a multi-state effort.
Before ending here.
Earlier today, human remains were discovered.
With the discovery of her remains in Grand Teton National Park. It has now become a cautionary tale.
Ultimately, her death will hopefully lead to many women being rescued and saved from these situations well before it gets to murder.
Former prosecutor and CBS consultant Mary Fulginiti says Gabby's story is really about recognizing the warning signs of domestic violence, which are often hard to read.
There are people who believe that Gabby Petito's story didn't have to end the way it did. If only the warning signs had been picked up on, would it have been different?
To most eyes, Gabby Petito and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, were compatible in every way.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
She's the coolest chick you ever met, man. By far, she's gonna make you smile.
Gabby's dad, Joseph.
She's the coolest chick you ever met. Simple as that.
22 years old, a New York girl from Long Island, an appetite for adventure.
She knew she wanted to take this trip.
Her mom, Nicole Schmidt.
She had told me about it probably a year before it started.
Brian's stretching, doing some morning yoga.
Brian's very charismatic. He always comes off as such a sweet person and just kind of like, I'm here.
One of Gabby's close friends, Rose Davis. They met soon after Gabby moved to Florida.
She texted me one of the sweetest messages I think I've ever got from someone, and it was just like, you seem so cool, I really want to be your friend. And I was just, absolutely.
They made TikTok videos together for fun. Rose says Gabby was good friends with Brian back in high school in New York. Then, after Brian moved to Florida, Gabby moved there too, to be closer to him.
I always told her life is kind of like a movie, because I was just like, this happens in movies.
Soon, they were in love and living together.
She'd let me know what they did, and you know, he'd make her breakfast, and it was always such a cute little thing, and they did cute little dinners.
In July of 2020, they got engaged. They even got tattoos together. But Rose says Brian could sometimes exhibit what she calls toxic traits. We spoke to Rose when Gabby was first reported missing.
When Brian wants something, he's gonna get it. And I don't mean in a physical way, he's gonna force it. He's just gonna I don't want people to say I'm calling him a full manipulator, but he'll manipulate the situation to get what he wants out of it. And, you know, he didn't want her to go out one night with me, and he stole her ID because you can't get into the bar without your ID. And, you know, this was really upsetting to her. You know, you're engaged. It's not, you know, it's not supposed to be like that.
But the couple seemed to put any drama behind them as they got ready for their adventure. Gabby worked hard at Taco Bell and with Brian at Publix Supermarket, saving money for their trip.
They bought the van, they converted it.
The goal was to spend 4 or 5 months crisscrossing the country, having adventures, even working on organic farms, and chronicling it all in real time on social media.
She was just like, I want to document this. This is so cool to be doing. And she just kind of like a vlogger, just let everyone know what she was up to.
She was excited, starting her van life digital journey where she's creating this whole, you know, following of van lifers. And that's what she was really into at the moment.
They rolled out officially on July 2nd. Gabby posted constantly.
Hello, hello, and good morning.
Every little detail.
You can't keep chocolate in Utah. Not in July.
But all those selfies may have been hiding a darker story.
It's everything behind the scenes you don't know.
6 weeks into their trip, on the afternoon of August 12th, in Utah near the Arches National Park, Gabby and Brian's Instagram road trip came to a shuddering stop.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated.
It was around 4:45 in the afternoon, according to this police officer's body cam.
Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb. Correction, speed limit is 15. What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Gabby, Brian, okay.
It was the stop that could have changed everything.
Grand County Sheriff's Office.
This 911 call was made on August 12, 2021, in Moab, Utah, 4 weeks before Gabby Petito was reported missing.
We're driving by and I'd like to report a domestic dispute.
The caller reports seeing what appeared to be an alarming confrontation between Gabby and Brian.
Florida license plate, white land. What were they doing? We drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl. He was slapping her? Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Officers from the Moab Police Department are dispatched, and within minutes, Gabby and Brian's white van is spotted driving erratically outside the Arches National Park. They're pulled over. The officers separate the couple and begin questioning them.
I'm just going over here.
Gabby is visibly shaken.
You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, and I'm trying to start a blog. I have a blog. So I've been building my website, so I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it, so that's kind of been like a, I don't know, he's like down there. I don't know, we've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down.
So, tell me what's going on.
Mercedes gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her, so like I locked the car and I walked away from her.
Brian tells police that Gabby attacked him, scratching his face and his arm as she tried to get back into the van.
Had her phone and was trying to get the piece of it, so I got in the way. I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her way to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
People that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you.
Another officer asked Gabby for more details about what happened.
Well, to be honest, I definitely hit him first.
Where'd you hit him?
I slapped him.
You slapped him first, and then what, just on his face?
He gets me to shut up.
How many times did you slap him?
Romeo, India, Alpha.
Just a couple.
And then what? And then his reaction was to do what?
Grabbed my arm so I wouldn't slap him.
He just grabbed you?
Yeah.
Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you.
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
Where did he hit you? Don't worry, just be honest.
He grabbed my face. It's like, I guess. He didn't hit me in the face. Like, he didn't punch me in the face or anything.
Did he slap your face or what?
Well, he grabbed me with his nail, and I guess that's why it looks. I definitely have a cut right here because I could feel it.
Yeah.
When I touch it, it burns.
The officers never directly asked Brian if he slapped or hit Gabby. They also didn't talk to the 911 caller who reported seeing Brian hit Gabby. But one of the officers did speak with a second eyewitness that day.
The witness says, I never saw him hit her. I saw him shove her, but I couldn't tell if it was an aggression against her or a defense against her. So at this point, unless the guy's screaming that he needs to go to jail and did something to this girl, it sounds to me like she is the primary aggressor. Yeah.
In Utah, if officers find evidence of a domestic violence assault, they are required to make an arrest or issue a citation. An independent investigation would later conclude that the officers did not have a clear understanding of the law.
Gabby, this is a very, very important question. How you answer this question is going to determine what happens next. But the only person who can answer this question is you.
They mistakenly believed that Gabby had to intend to harm Brian to require an arrest.
When you slapped him those times, were you attempting to cause him physical pain or physical impairment? Was that what you were attempting to do to him?
No.
What were you attempting to do? What was the reason behind the slapping and stuff? What was it you were attempting to accomplish by slapping?
I was trying to get him to stop telling me about it.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like she attempted to injure him.
Ultimately, officers on the scene decided to separate the couple for the night.
I'm going to give you the keys to the van.
Gabby was told to stay with the van.
I'm giving him a ride over to the hotel. Okay.
As the assumed victim, Brian was sent to a hotel.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything.
No problem. It's nice to meet you, Brian.
Nice to meet you.
No one was arrested or issued a citation. Forensic psychologist Chris Mohandi has worked closely with law enforcement on issues of domestic violence.
The officers that responded to Gabby and Brian were compassionate. Their hearts were in the right place of wanting to help. They were trying to do what they mistakenly believed was the right thing by cutting them a break.
Weeks later, when the body cam footage was released, there was a public uproar.
Newly released video shows what looks like the aftermath of an argument between Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie.
For her friend Rose, those images were almost impossible to watch.
It takes a lot for her to get that hysterical.
But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out.
And so when I saw the body cam, I knew it was more than just a little argument. She's not gonna slap him for no reason.
The release of the 911 call drew outrage.
He was slapping her?
Followers of the story on social media erupted in anger. My blood is boiling at how they failed this poor girl. All I know is this didn't have to end like this. Police missed an opportunity. Mohandi says the officers seemed to miss signs of domestic abuse.
It's just crazy.
And Gabby accepting the blame.
And I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean because...
In a domestically violent relationship, it's not uncommon for one party to take the blame for what really is the behavior of the other party.
The independent investigator later wrote that it's very likely that Gabby was a long-term victim of domestic violence. The ramifications of the officer's actions during that stop would play out in the days ahead, and months later would be questioned by Gabby's parents and their lawyers. Just days after that traffic stop, Gabby and Brian were back on the road, headed north to Salt Lake City.
It rained all afternoon yesterday.
On August 19th, Gabby posted an edited 8-minute video showing their journey together.
It is really nice and sunny today.
The video showed no signs of any tension between Gabby and Brian. Later, Gabby told her mom they were leaving Utah and driving to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming.
She was happy. She was excited to keep going on her journey. And that was the last time I spoke to her verbally.
On August 25th, Gabby posted a series of photos on Instagram in front of a butterfly mural in Ogden, Utah. It would be her final post on Instagram.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
The Instagram post on August 25th, 2021 was the last time Gabby Petito would publish on social media. And shortly after she said she and Brian were headed to Grand Teton National Park, Gabby's parents stopped hearing from her.
She seemed to have been in communication with her parents on a regular basis throughout the totality of this trip, and they were checking in on her regularly.
Then, on August 27th, 2021, her mother says she received a strange text message from Gabby's phone. It read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." Stan is Gabby's grandfather.
The mother thought it was odd because she never refers to her grandfather as Stan.
It was out of character and disconcerting, but as far as the Petito family knew, Gabby and Brian were still together on their trip.
Hi, my name is Miranda Baker, and on August 29th, my boyfriend and I picked up Brian at Grand Teton National Park at 5:30 at night at Coulter Bay.
48 hours after Gabby's mother received that cryptic text, Miranda Baker says she and her boyfriend picked up a man she believes was Brian Laundrie. She says he was alone.
He approached us asking us for a ride because he needed to go to Jackson. Before he came in the car, he offered to pay us like $200 to give him a ride, like 10 miles. So that was kind of weird. He then told us he's been camping for multiple days without his fiancé and that she was working on their social media page back at their van.
Suddenly, says Miranda, things took a turn when there was confusion over where they were going.
He freaked out. He's like, nope, I need to get out right now, like pull over. We dropped him off at 6:09 p.m. on August 29th.
Meanwhile, Gabby's mother, Nicole, did receive one more text from Gabby's phone. It said that there was no service in Yosemite.
The last text I received from her phone was August 30th.
Are you confident that was from her, or you're not sure?
I can't comment on that.
During Gabby's travels, she had been staying in touch with her friend Rose Davis. Rose was expecting to hear from Gabby on her birthday.
So we talked, and my birthday is August 29th. So we decided, call me then.
But no birthday call or text came.
I honestly didn't think anything of it when she didn't text me or anything, because she's traveling cross country, and you know, once it got later into it, around like 8th and 9th of September, that was the point where I was like, she would have called me. Why haven't I heard from her yet?
What Rose did not know was that on September 1st, Brian Laundrie was back in Northport, Florida. He had driven the van there, and he was alone. The Petito family knew none of this, but they had already become alarmed when they stopped hearing from Gabby altogether, and her cell phone had stopped working.
Did you ever reach out to her boyfriend to figure out what happened and where your daughter is?
We can't comment on that.
We're not commenting on it.
But Gabby's mother did reach out to police.
It was actually Friday the 10th that I decided to call police because I had had 10 days, almost 11 days was enough for me to not hear from my child. And I got the runaround. Nobody wanted to report her missing. She's an adult, she's traveling. But as a mother, I said, it's not like her. Finally, that Saturday, I went personally to Suffolk County 5th Precinct, and now this is where we are.
Gabby Petito was officially declared a missing person on September 11th, just over 2 weeks after her last Instagram post. As the nation remembered so many lives lost 20 years earlier, the Petito family focused on one life, that of their missing daughter.
We're looking for her and only her, not the van, not the two of them, just her. Keep your eyes out and we'll find her.
A woman disappears on a cross-country trip with her boyfriend in a van.
On Monday, September 13th, 2021, the story of Gabby Petito's disappearance hit the news.
The parents of a missing woman from Long Island need help finding her.
Gabby's mom and stepdad, Nicole and Jim Schmidt, held up her photo for reporters.
Do it.
Gabby's 22 years old. She's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful soul inside and out.
Rose Davis was devastated to see her friend's picture on TV.
My mom called me into her room and Gabby's face was all over the news, and I kind of just went into shock.
What happened to Gabby Petito? Once it became clear that Gabby Petito had gone missing, her mom and stepdad, her father Joe Petito, and stepmom Tara set up a Find Gabby page where people could post tips and information. She was reportedly last seen near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming around August 27th, 2021.
We want her home.
We want her home safe and sound.
I immediately made like a collage of all of our photos and for a TikTok and posted the information, Facebook, Instagram, everything.
Within days, videos about Gabby's disappearance exploded across social media. Even people with no connection to Gabby joined the search to help find her.
We are going to be going to the Grand Tetons to see if there's anything that we can do to help in the search of Gabby Petito.
You know, the social media has been amazing. Getting everybody to post it, repost it. We need for her to come back home, and anything you guys can do to help us get there is just appreciated, and we just got to keep doing it.
For Gabby's parents, this spotlight in the media and online was invaluable. But there was one person who wasn't helping solve the mystery of what happened to Gabby, Brian Laundrie. Northport, Florida police spokesman Josh Taylor said investigators were frustrated. Neither he nor his parents would answer their questions, even though Gabby had lived with them.
We were essentially handed the information for their attorney. That is the extent of our conversation with them.
First word that popped in my brain was coward, to be honest with you. You're supposed to love her. You're supposed to marry her. Where is she?
Police confiscated the white Ford van, searched it for evidence, and then released it, posting that Brian was now a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance. Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino spoke briefly to the press.
On behalf of the Laundrie family, I will hope that Ms. Petito is located and that she's reunited with her family.
Gabby's parents responded through attorney Rick Stafford with a scathing letter.
We believe you know the location of where Brian left Gabby. We beg you to tell us. As a parent, how could you let us go through this pain and not help us?
6 days after Gabby was declared missing, the Laundrie family reported that they didn't know where Brian was. They said he'd left for a hike at the Carlton Reserve days earlier. Police immediately began to comb the huge local park looking for Brian.
A massive search. More than 50 officers and FBI agents combing a 24,000-acre park near Sarasota, Florida, looking for Brian Laundrie.
Anger at the Laundrie family's silence prompted protesters to gather outside the Laundrie home demanding answers. While authorities were searching for Brian in Florida, the search for Gabby in and around Wyoming intensified.
It was like a nationwide hunt, too, between social media and all the other avenues. And people were looking for the van. People were looking for where it went, when it went. They were looking for Gabby Petito.
And in this case, all of that social media attention ultimately helped investigators locate Gabby. When Kyle and Jen Bethune came forward with information, they had spotted Gabby and Brian's van. The Bethunes had been in Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park around the time Gabby's family last heard from her. On August 27, 2021, the Bethunes had their GoPros rolling for their YouTube channel when they went looking for a campground.
We're driving down this road past this van, and it had Florida plates. However, the van was completely dark. We assumed that they were just out hiking or doing something else.
Once the Bethunes left the park, they didn't think about the van again until late on Saturday, September 18th, when Jen checked her phone and was stunned to learn authorities now believed Gabby had been in the Tetons the very same night the Bethunes were there. Jen instantly remembered the white van.
And I immediately got goosebumps all over my body. I rushed back to the computer and I saw that white speck of van and I was like, please keep going, please keep going. And it did, and it got bigger and bigger.
We just some reason instantly knew that it was hers.
When I called the FBI, I was like, I have found Gabby's footage, like patch me across to somebody, like this is huge, because I knew deep down what it was. And I knew how important this footage would be to finding Gabby.
As instructed, the Bethunes uploaded their footage to the FBI website. They also posted it on YouTube and Facebook. Just hours later came the devastating announcement.
Earlier today, human remains were discovered, consistent with the description of Gabby Petito.
The FBI says Gabby's remains were found at the Spread Creek camping area inside Bridger-Teton National Forest in Wyoming. An autopsy confirmed the remains were Gabby's, and the coroner determined her death was a homicide by manual strangulation.
We have no additional comments.
Gabby's family asked for privacy, but her father, Joe, sent out a tweet that summed up the moment. It read simply, "She touched the world." Hours after it was announced Gabby had been found, over a dozen FBI agents and police officers swarmed the home of Brian's parents.
Police arrived, the FBI arrived, they were carrying a battering ram. They also announced that they had a warrant. I think seeing these FBI agents and police here, you wonder, do they now know where he is?
The next day, Northport Police, the FBI, and other agencies ramped up the search of the nature preserve near Brian's home.
Terrain's very difficult. Essentially, 75% of it's underwater.
49 days after Brian had returned home without Gabby, on October 20th, 2021, the FBI made an announcement.
Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains.
An autopsy revealed Brian Laundrie had died from a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. And there was something else.
Along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
That notebook contained writings from Brian explaining what he says really happened to Gabby Petito. Writing, "I ended her life. I thought it was merciful." Before Brian Laundrie put a bullet through his head, he wrote a story describing how Gabby Petito died.
It was dark. They were running across a stream. She must have fell and hurt herself. And he went to help her, but she seemed to be in extreme pain.
In that small notebook found in a dry bag near Brian's remains, he wrote, "I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it is what she wanted. But I see now all the mistakes I made."
It was a self-serving narrative that portrayed that there had been an accident and that there had been a mercy killing by him of her because she was suffering.
Brian's stretching.
It speaks to selfishness and a degree of narcissism, that it was important for how other people looked at him, his image. You know, he had the last word.
While Gabby's parents will never see Brian Laundrie face a jury, they are seeking their own version of justice, suing Brian's estate for wrongful death and his parents for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Where's Gabby?
Attorney Patrick Riley.
It's our belief that the Laundrie family was aware that Brian had murdered Gabby and was aware where her body was located.
Riley says that belief is based on information from the FBI. He says the FBI believes that Gabby was murdered on August 27, 2021, and that Brian made a lengthy phone call to his parents on the 28th. He says according to the FBI, Brian's parents then contacted an attorney that same day. How damning is that? Why would they get an attorney so fast?
It's very damning. It doesn't pass the smell test.
The Laundrie's attorney issued a statement denying the allegations made in the lawsuits and saying this lawsuit does not change the fact that the Laundries had no obligation to speak to law enforcement or any third party, including the Petito family. But there's more, says Riley. A letter allegedly written to Brian by his mother, Roberta Laundrie. Riley says he and Gabby's mom read it while reviewing evidence at the FBI's Tampa office.
There was one part that sticks out, which is, if you go to prison, I'll bake a cake with a shiv in it. And by the way, the envelope that the letter came in had written on the front of it, "Burn after reading."
If it can be proven when and if Brian's mother did indeed write that letter, it could be very damaging, says Mary Fulginiti.
Because it shows the mindset of the mother, that she'll do anything to protect her child.
In addition to the cases in Florida, Gabby's parents filed a lawsuit against the Moab Police Department.
How's it going? How are we doing?
Relating to how they handled that domestic violence stop with Gabby and Brian. Attorney Brian Stewart.
The family believes that Gabby would still be alive today if the police officers had had the proper training and had followed the law in how they responded to Gabby's situation.
Hey, how are you?
According to Stewart, the body cam footage shows there was a fundamental problem.
Hey, the very best thing I can do is call my supervisor and see if I'm missing something here.
It's clear that the officers did not have a clear understanding of the law that they were supposed to enforce that day.
Gabby, try to calm down and I'm going to go call a supervisor.
The Moab Police Department commissioned the captain of another Utah Police Department to conduct that independent review of the officers' actions that day. Among the report's conclusions, there was probable cause for an arrest.
By choosing not to apply the statute and effect an arrest, the officers left Gabby and Brian in a dangerous situation.
The report cited other unintentional mistakes, says Mary Fulginiti.
They didn't follow up with a key witness, which is the 911 caller. They did not follow up with questions to Brian Laundrie about whether or not he grabbed her face or grabbed her arm. They didn't document Gabby's wounds photographically or in the report.
Mary Fulginiti believes they also missed some classic telltale signs of domestic violence.
And here was a girl who was hysterically crying, who was immediately taking the blame, who was also trying to minimize her boyfriend's actions. All of this while he remained calm, cool, and collected through his interview. So I think if you look at that in the totality, and had all those things been addressed, we might have had a different outcome here.
Oh, this could have been a game changer. We don't know for sure. We'll never know. But certainly, intervention would have been more possible under that scenario.
One of the officers involved told the independent investigator after Gabby's death, quote, "I would have done anything to stop it if I would have known that was coming."
What happened? What's going on?
In a statement, the city of Moab said it believed the officers showed kindness,
You want to come stand in the shade?
respect, and empathy in their handling of this incident.
Get you in the van, let's get you on your way, all righty?
The city intends to implement the recommendations of the independent review, which include more domestic violence investigation-related training and legal training to ensure officers understand Utah state laws. The attorneys for Gabby's parents insist their lawsuits are not about money. They're about raising awareness. Gabby's mother, Nicole, told the Associated Press, "I get people messaging me all the time that they were inspired by her to get out of a relationship."
Yeah, and I think that in and of itself is a huge, huge victory for a family that has sadly encountered such tragedy. But there can be these bright lights that come out of these bad circumstances. And if there is one to be shined here, it will be hopefully that there will be young girls out there that say, you know what, I'm gonna walk away. I'm not gonna stay, or I'm gonna get myself the help I need to get the strength to walk away.
Gabby Petito, doing in death what she did in life.
I've always described her as this light, you know. She'll do everything to bring the light out in you, and if she can't, she'll give you some of hers.
A con woman's uniquely lethal plan for identity theft.
I've seen people killed with knives and machetes and guns.
Death by desert.
I have never seen anyone try to kill another person with a piece of cheesecake.
Until now.
Until now.
48 Hours, Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Ally got along with everyone. She was very bubbly and spirited. She always had a smile on her face.
Ally, what are you doing?
Taking a picture for Sunsets by Ally. Follow it.
She wanted to live the college life in a large university.
She really wanted to be involved in a school that had that ranking. Good football team.
Vaught Hemingway Stadium, Oxford, Mississippi. It is the home opener for the Ole Miss Rebels.
It's fair to say she loved Ole Miss.
Yes, Ally loved Ole Miss.
It was fairly late at night. She was going out to the bar. It wasn't weird for her to go out on her own and meet up with other people at the square where all the bars are. She takes an Uber and she goes home alone.
Sardis Lake is a big area. There's lots of hunting camps and recreational spaces that people use on the lake. The sheriff's department here does a really good job of doing their best to patrol these locations. The deputy is on a routine patrol of that area.
I don't know what the moonlight was like, but there's nothing around you. You're in the pitch black dark. It's not like a lover's lane or nothing. I mean, it's just rural. A lot of people don't know about it.
When you got there, what did you find?
A white female laying on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds to her back. I have not worked a murder where somebody's been shot that many times. When the ambulance crew was driving in, they noticed the purse in the road ditch. As soon as we opened the purse, Ole Miss ID card and a driver's license.
Hey, Morgan, this is Micah East at the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling in regards to a friend of yours, Ally Kostial.
I had realized I had a missed call, and it was the police, and they were calling about Ally.
The police came to the door, and they told us.
What did they tell you?
There had been a homicide and that she was the victim.
And I still don't believe it. And here we are.
That led investigators to go and look in her apartment and her room, and they found her Apple Watch. And even though her phone was not there, some of those messages still synced to that watch.
The hardest thing to do is to go back and read her messages.
The heinousness of this, the crime itself, to shoot her as many times as she had been shot, seems so personal.
Yeah.
Basically almost was like execution type style.
In your mind, the motive for murder was?
Get rid of a problem.
How would you describe this case?
A tragedy of Shakespearean proportions.
It's unclear why a 21-year-old student would be in that area some 30 miles away from campus. Authorities have released limited details on the case, but did say they suspect foul play.
Though it's been years since Cindy and Keith Kostial's daughter, Ally, was found murdered on July 20th, 2019, it still doesn't seem real to them.
It does seem like she's still away at school.
And I still don't believe it. And here we are, still in denial.
The Kostials had visited Ally at her apartment a few days before.
She wanted us to stay an extra day. She was having so much fun. She wanted me to cook her home-cooked meals. We went shopping. She loves a beach theme, so we just bought a bunch of new decor, you know.
Cindy and Keith had returned home to St. Louis when Cindy spoke with Ally on the phone just hours before she died.
It was like 7 o'clock at night. She had just woken up from a nap because she had a test, actually, on that day. I said, what are you gonna do tonight? She said, I'm gonna go out with some friends.
24 hours later, Lafayette County Sheriff's Department investigator Jared Bundren was hoping clues from Ally's Apple Watch might lead to the first break in the case.
We just started from there.
What was she like to you?
She was like my sister.
Like so many who knew and loved Ally, Maddie Norris, one of her best friends in high school, was trying to make sense of what had happened.
I just was like in shock.
The two were inseparable.
It was like if Ally was there, Maddie was there.
I love you too.
She was like my other half. We had like a bunch of adventures together. Girl things, watching chick flicks, watching Legally Blonde, driving in her convertible.
When it came time to go prom dress shopping,
she just tried on this red dress. And she called her mom and was like, Mom, I have to get this dress.
Did she have a boyfriend in high school?
She had boys she had like crushes on, but nothing ever serious.
She didn't find a date for prom. And so I asked her to be my prom date.
After graduation, Ally was thrilled to be heading to a college steeped in tradition, history, and football, the University of Mississippi.
She liked the preppy life, very like girly, like pearls.
Ally arrived in the fall of 2016, but the marketing business major may have had something more on her mind.
She wanted to meet a Southern boy and get married and have children one day, and she thought that would be a perfect setting for her to meet her companion for life.
By junior year, we were thick as thieves, like best friends.
Morgan Hull went to college with Ally.
She's always like rearranging and redecorating her room too, which is always so funny to find little Ally like moving all the furniture around by herself.
We were both from St. Louis.
Elizabeth Brock met Ally at a campus party and became fast friends.
So then we're like, oh my God, how did we like not meet until now?
Elizabeth says Ally was fascinated by sunsets.
She had a sunset Instagram account where she'd post pictures that she took of sunsets.
As for dating at college, Cindy recalled Ally saying she met someone her freshman year.
She said, I met this boy, he's from Texas. She, for whatever reason, loves the state of Texas. And she was real excited to invite him to a sorority dance. That's the boy she really liked.
What did she first say about him?
That she found a guy that was cute, that she was starting to like, had a crush on.
That crush would turn out to be fellow student Brandon Theesfeld from Fort Worth.
Was she really excited about him?
Yes, like head over heels. I think she took him to most of her date parties that her sorority had.
So when Maddie went down to Oxford to visit, she was looking forward to meeting the new man in Ally's life. Unfortunately,
I never met him.
Things did not go as planned.
You never met him?
Mm-mm.
Because he never came around?
Never came around.
How did she feel about that?
I mean, it hurt her. You have like your best friend from high school coming down to visit you and your crush is MIA.
Maddie was concerned that there was something about her friend's relationship that wasn't quite right. But otherwise, Ally seemed to be thriving at college.
She loved it. She could not get enough of it. She finally achieved the goal of going there and she just was living her life.
3 years later, her life was cut short. Now, with the clock ticking on finding her killer, Ally's Apple Watch proved invaluable to investigators.
What did the watch tell you?
The watch was telling you she was having very lengthy text message conversation with Brandon.
Brandon Theesfeld, Ally's freshman year crush. It seemed the two were planning to see each other that very night. When investigators discovered that Ally's last text messages were with Brandon Theesfeld, they wanted to talk to him, and soon.
We called late Saturday, early Sunday morning to come in and give her an interview.
Investigators also tried tracking Ally's phone on Saturday, but it only pinged once in Oxford before the signal died. Theesfeld responded, but made excuses about why he couldn't meet all weekend. Finally,
he said that he would be there at 8:30 Monday morning.
And 8:30 Monday morning came?
No Brandon.
Lafayette County Assistant District Attorney Mickey Mallett says that's when the decision was made to start tracking his phone.
When they do that mid-morning on a real-time situation, they can see where he is.
What did you find out?
That he was on Interstate 55 headed north toward Memphis.
From here to go to where he lives in Texas, that's probably the most common way to go. They can see his location moving away from Oxford.
District Attorney Ben Creekmore says with Theesfeld appearing to be on the run, investigators got an affidavit of arrest for murder and immediately sent out a bulletin.
When we saw that his truck was leaving Oxford, there was a bolo for his tag.
A bolo?
Be on the lookout.
It didn't take long for the Memphis Fugitive Task Force to spot Theesfeld.
About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, they caught him at the gas station.
Bundren says Theesfeld was sitting at the pumps in his pickup truck, which had easy-to-spot license plates.
The tag on the plates?
It says, "Take it."
Hard to miss.
Very hard to miss.
A dash cam captured Theesfeld being taken into custody. Police immediately alerted investigators in Mississippi about what they found in the truck and on his clothing.
He had a .40 caliber gun, consistent with the caliber of the shell casings that were found on the scene, and he had blood on him.
Bundren headed north to pick him up.
He was calm, read him his rights. He invoked his rights, wanted his attorney. He was picked up in Tennessee. We asked him if he would sign a waiver of extradition to come back to Mississippi, and he signed it. We brought him back.
With Theesfeld in custody, investigators began retracing his steps the weekend of Ally's murder. They learned that he had been popping up all over Oxford, starting on Saturday.
He stayed with some friends. They said it was very casual. They went bowling, normal stuff.
But there was nothing normal about what he brought to a friend's house on Sunday.
Said he came in to his house carrying a gun and unloaded the gun in the house. He brought in a 6-pack of beer and said that they set up for a while. When he got up the next morning, he was gone.
While Theesfeld wasn't talking to investigators, he would eventually talk to an attorney, Tony Faris, hired by his family.
He had a life full of promise, received lots of love in a good Christian family.
Faris learned Theesfeld was a doctor's son. He seemed to have enjoyed a typical Texas childhood.
He liked outdoors, hunting, fishing. He was a soccer player. He had never been in a fight in school, no history of violence.
It wasn't long after arriving in Oxford that Theesfeld met Ally.
He met her at a local bar. They dated casually during their freshman year. I think she was more enthralled with Brandon than Brandon was with her, quite candidly.
According to Faris, their relationship became complicated when they were sophomores.
Did he actually block her from his phone?
Yes. She had texted him so much late at night when she's out drinking and partying, and it got to the point where he did block her phone, yes.
But something shifted by their junior year, and the two got back in touch.
I think she saw this as a mutual romantic endeavor, and Brandon did not see it that way.
Which would explain one thing.
So when did you first meet him?
I never met him.
Ally's closest friends didn't know Theesfeld at all. Morgan says she'd only met him one time.
It's so odd that we were her best friends and we still really didn't even know him that well. Like when this happened, we didn't even know his last name.
But in August of 2019, Theesfeld's name was front page news. That's when the case was presented to a grand jury. The evidence included pictures of the gun and shell casings And this letter investigators recovered during a search of his apartment, apparently written by Theesfeld the weekend Ally was found dead. Prosecutors say it's a confession.
The letter that he's written to his mom and dad, concerned about what he's done.
Theesfeld wrote that he'd always had terrible thoughts, and this is the end for me. I'm either going to prison or going to die. He also wrote, I know I'm going to get caught.
He confessed.
I think he did. He didn't say he committed the murder.
You could argue that it was a confession, an apology to his mom.
It was
and
an
dad.
apology.
Tony Faris says he spoke to Theesfeld about the letter and says it was also something more, a suicide note.
He writes a goodbye note to his family, tells them that he loves them, apologizes for what he's done. I am told by Brandon that he has the gun to his head and then passes out.
The grand jury handed down their indictment.
Capital One murder.
At the time, Jake Thompson was a reporter for the local paper, the Oxford Eagle. He says Theesfeld faced the death penalty for kidnapping and murdering Ally.
It rocked Oxford to its core because, you know, Oxford takes in these people. They're one of their own for 4 years, 5 years, however long you're here. And so it was tough for both the academic and the university and the citizens of Oxford.
In late September, Theesfeld appeared in court to enter a plea, not guilty.
The big question, you know, of course, why did it happen? And that was something that we were all initially trying to figure out.
Investigators hope to find some answers in hundreds of text messages between Ally and Theesfeld. And what they discovered included some life-changing news.
The first messages about it started in early April.
We're stuck. Can't move forward. Days are just rough.
When you think about her not being here, that makes you feel what?
Sad and like broken.
Back up.
As Ally's friends and family waited for Brandon Theesfeld to go to trial for her murder, prosecutors were building their case.
All right.
They were hoping text messages between the two could provide insight about what may have led to her death.
We know more about what he may have been thinking, and we know more about what she may have been thinking.
What was the relationship between these two?
Well, that might be different depending on who you ask. I think it would be fair to say that she looked at it with a more serious eye over the entirety of their relationship.
Theesfeld's defense attorney, Tony Faris.
From Brandon's standpoint, it was a casual sexual relationship.
They were never boyfriend and girlfriend. They didn't go on dates. Like, he didn't pick her up, take her anywhere out to dinner, none of that. But he would tell her that he wasn't good enough for her, and that's why they couldn't be together.
Morgan and Elizabeth say it was an odd relationship.
He definitely manipulated her.
Carried out over text.
I think we were just more like upset with how if she would show us like texts from him or tell us things, he would say that we're really unkind to her.
So you knew she liked this boy?
Yeah.
But she never really had mentioned him, at least to me, over time, or that he was, you know, even in the scene at all.
Was there anything in her behavior that suggested things weren't normal?
See, and that's the thing, she's told me everything in life, but never discussed him.
Cindy and Keith say they have not read their daughter's text conversations uncovered by investigators.
No, we haven't read any of it.
Will you?
I don't know if I can.
In April 2019, just 3 months before her death, Ally was getting ready for spring semester finals. What her mom didn't know was Ally was focused on a different kind of test, a home pregnancy test.
When you learned about that, was that something so out of line for Ally in her behavior?
Big time, yeah.
On April 14th, she texted Brandon Theesfeld a photo of an inconclusive home pregnancy test and this message, like it's a very faint blue line. But I don't know. I guess I can wait and see if my period comes. Theesfeld's response, well, all right, we will see. But if it is pregnant, we are not keeping. We can get a pill.
She was definitely worried. She thought she might be pregnant.
In this text, Ally, it seems, was anxious and conflicted. I'm not saying what I am going to do because I don't know what's happening. But even if you don't want to be involved, like I am really pretty and sweet, and I know I will meet a real man one day. It appeared Theesfeld did not see fatherhood in his immediate future. I'm serious, no kid at all. It will ruin my life.
She was trying to get into contact with Brandon about this, and she had texted him, and he would either just ignore her or do the thing where he would tell her, okay, like, I will come over tonight and we can talk about this, and then he would never show up.
So she talked to you about this?
Yeah, she came to us right away.
Investigators would later learn after Brandon Theesfeld received news about that pregnancy test, he had been searching the internet for mother wants kid, father does not.
Yes, he did suggest an abortion initially. There was talk about that. He regrets that, but that did occur. That's memorialized in the text messages.
So in your mind, if she was pregnant, she would have had the baby?
She would have given it the world, honestly.
Ally, despite the ambiguous test result, would text Theesfeld day and night. Many of her messages are long, revealing, and troubling, says forensic psychologist Chris Mohandi. He was not involved in the case. We asked him to read some of the text messages.
These lengthy, pretty much one-sided conversations that were initiated by Ally, with very little in return from Brandon, make this a very lopsided investment into this relationship.
This exchange begins on Monday, April 15th, 2019, at 12:57 a.m., with Ally writing, I lived it up this weekend and was drunk 24/7. I did that so my body might decide, no, not today. Then at 2:37 a.m., she texts, I thought about it. If you want to talk to me in person, that would be better. Theesfeld responds, almost 9 hours later, I can talk tomorrow. I'm busy today. I'm still going to have the decision of the pill.
To me, there's several layers there.
Do you sense that at all, based on what you've read, that he has any desire to keep her on the sideline?
It appears that he has no desire to keep her on the sideline from what I've seen in these communications. He's communicating just enough for a purpose to try to influence her into terminating the pregnancy, if indeed she is pregnant. That seems to me to be his only investment in any of these communications.
Mohandi says Ally may have been trying to get Brandon Theesfeld's attention with texts about her drinking. In the past 48 hours, I've literally drank a full bottle of tequila, 2 bottles of champagne, 7 beers, a glass of wine. I can't even imagine someone her size being able to consume that much alcohol.
That's a lot of alcohol to consume for somebody of her size and for many people, if not most people. My concern would be, alcohol poisoning or an overdose from alcohol, which is why I raised the question of how much she's drinking, or it's being exaggerated to show, hey, to tell Brandon, I'm self-destructive, come to my rescue, you gotta help me, I'm desperate.
Do you believe Brandon believed she was pregnant?
I know that Ally claimed to have been pregnant. So the question is, why would she claim to be pregnant if she were not pregnant? Hence, my conclusion is that she wanted a serious relationship with Brandon, which in her mind could have included marriage.
The text messages had created a digital map of a complicated relationship
They also gave investigators clues about where Theesfeld was heading a week before Ally's death. On Friday, July 12th, Theesfeld would take a road trip home to Fort Worth, Texas. That same day, Ally texted him a photo of 2 more ambiguous home pregnancy tests. Less than 48 hours later, at 4:16 p.m., he posts a disturbing photo on social media.
He does a Snapchat saying, with a picture of this .40 caliber gun.
And there's a chilling caption, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." By the time Brandon Theesfeld drove back from Texas to Mississippi, he'd left a digital footprint, and prosecutors say it revealed a deeply disturbing web search history.
He is doing some computer searches on how to get away with crimes, how to conceal crimes, planning preparation type stuff, how to tie people up, how to lure them in. He did a search on Ted Bundy's.
For Ally's friend Morgan, it was an eerie reminder.
A few months before this happened, Ally and I watched the Ted Bundy movie together.
Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, vile.
And we just sat in her bed and we ate popcorn and snacks, and we were like, this is so messed up. And then months later, this happens to Ally.
What explanation do you have for what he was thinking when he's making these searches?
Well, he certainly has some searches that could be troubling. It depends on how you view those. When you start looking at someone's search history, you're watching TV, you've got all sorts of news shows that feature Ted Bundy.
Attorney Tony Faree says the search history doesn't prove Theesfeld had been planning to shoot Ally. He says there's an innocent explanation for why his client brought that pistol back to Mississippi.
That's not outlandish. That in our part of the country, in Mississippi and Texas, people shoot. We've got shooting ranges here in Oxford, so we deny that it was brought back for the sole purpose of killing Ally.
But it was clear to prosecutors Theesfeld's trip to Texas and the computer searches were part of a carefully laid out plan.
When you put it together, it would appear to us what his purpose was in bringing the gun back.
A gun that apparently he didn't even know how to use.
If you sit there and you go through all of his Google searches, he don't even really know how to work a gun. He was Googling hollow point ammo and what button does what on a Glock pistol.
On Thursday, July 18th, shortly before 2 in the morning, Ally texts Theesfeld a photo of her stomach. The following day, Friday, July 19th, the day before her death, Theesfeld texts Ally, "Are you going to be home today? 'Cause I could visit." Almost 2 hours later, Ally texts him another photo and this message. Like, it isn't like I'm not that small anymore and I can pretend I'm fat right now, but I don't know. It's getting hard. After a few more texts from Ally, Theesfeld writes, "Just let me know when you are back from going out. Is your house private right now?"
The horrifying irony is that text messages from him to her were asking, is it a good environment? Are your friends going to be there? And you could assume that she's thinking he wants to talk about the pregnancy issue and to work on the relationship. In his mind, he's thinking, I don't want any witnesses when I get her in the car with me.
Minutes before midnight, a security camera captured Ally walking out of a bar in Oxford Square. Then around 1:30 in the morning, prosecutors say Theesfeld and Ally take that dark and desolate drive to Sardis Lake. Once you turn off that paved road onto the dirt road and then another 10 minutes to get to here, there's no one out here. I mean, this is an abandoned fish camp.
Yes, ma'am.
Assistant District Attorney Mickey Mallett and investigator Jared Bundren took us to the place where it happened, where there's now a makeshift memorial.
I mean, I can only imagine what was going through her head. Wasn't she alarmed? Wasn't she concerned?
You know, in her mind, she may not have had a reason before that to be in the same kind of fear. You know, we'll never know, but I think she was just so blinded by her desperation to talk about what to do in their relationship.
Investigators found cans of White Claw hard seltzer on the picnic table. 11 shell casings were discovered on the ground.
What did ballistics tell you?
Ballistics told me he was sitting either across from her or on that side of the table. He fired one shot. There was one shell casing here, and the other 10 were in that area coming around the table. They was not all in one spot. It like started coming all the way around.
He circled her.
Yes.
And with every move?
He was firing. I mean, even one round hit the table right there.
And he just left her here.
Left her here.
Theesfeld knew all about that place on the lake. He'd been there his freshman year. His attorney told us what Theesfeld says happened that night.
He had been drinking all that day. She had been drinking. They're listening to music. They start talking. Brandon has some cocaine. He goes to the truck, does a little cocaine inside of the truck, goes back to the picnic table.
Theesfeld, he says, goes back to his truck again, grabs his pistol, and fires a shot across the lake.
She states, "Oh, you're crazy." We sit there and talk. Then he shoots her.
Remember, Ally was shot at least 9 times.
Why? It just came out of nowhere?
I'm not sure out of nowhere. Brandon denies that it was planned when he took her out there. I don't think Brandon would have been in this situation but for his choice of consuming alcohol and then using cocaine.
So you're saying in that moment, under the influence of alcohol and cocaine, he snapped?
That's what I'm saying.
It was out of rage, out of rage.
And rage for what?
Maybe he thought he was going to be a father and he wanted to end it his own way.
The evidence against Brandon Theesfeld, according to prosecutors, was overwhelming.
There was a lot of planning on Theesfeld's part about what he was going to do. I'm not saying it was smart the way he did it, but pretty good indication that he was looking for a remote location so her body would not be discovered.
No doubt in your mind that this was premeditated?
No doubt.
No doubt.
Heat of passion?
No.
No, it was cold and calculated.
This was calculated over a very extended period of time.
Which is why it was capital murder.
In Mississippi, a capital murder charge means another felony crime was involved. And in this case, prosecutors say that crime was kidnapping. They believe Theesfeld lured Ally into his truck.
Under the guise of working the relationship out, when he had a .40 caliber pistol and had planned her murder all along.
Theesfeld's attorney says that theory might be tough to prove at trial.
They were going to have to show that we kidnapped Ally. She voluntarily gets in the truck. They're going to try to say that we tricked her. That's a very, very big stretch.
With Theesfeld facing a possible death sentence and prosecutors knowing a capital murder trial could be grueling, emotional, and risky for everyone involved, they presented the defense with an offer.
If you get a plea offer other than death, then guess what? You've got a scenario where a plea to a lesser charge of first-degree murder is certainly more attractive.
And that's exactly what happened. On August 27th, 2021,
All right, you can look too close, Bart.
Brandon Theesfeld, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Ally's family and friends were there wearing her favorite color. pink. The judge sentenced Brandon to life in prison. Reporter Jake Thompson was in the courtroom.
We never saw emotion from him until the plea hearing, where he spoke or read a little bit. He broke down in tears. That was the first time he showed emotion.
Theesfeld's audio was muffled when he faced the judge and addressed the court. He said in part, quote, "There is no excuse for my actions. I have asked God for forgiveness, and I hope one day that you will find it in your hearts to forgive me."
Brandon Theesfeld stood up and accepted responsibility in open court, and the realization of the consequences of his actions are very real and sobering. There is no parole for murder in Mississippi. So let me tell you, that is a terrible penalty.
Why did he say he killed her?
There is no justification for his conduct, and I believe no good explanation for what he did.
Does he say why, though?
No, I'm just telling you, to the best of, I mean, there is no good answer. I think what has been explained is he's impaired on alcohol, he's drunk, he's impaired on cocaine. We certainly know what that does to someone's mind. You know, was he justified? Absolutely not. Were they arguing? Not to my knowledge. Did the allegation of pregnancy going on and on and on contribute to that? Certainly could have. He shared with us that he didn't know, but he didn't believe that she were pregnant. But he
said he didn't believe she was
well, he doubted that she was
pregnant. He doubted that she was pregnant.
He doubted that she was pregnant.
Prosecutors say the home pregnancy test results were inconclusive. Ally's autopsy report, however, was definitive.
We know medically she was not pregnant.
Could Ally have been pregnant in the months leading up to her death? According to a text message she sent Theesfeld in early July, Ally says she had been bleeding and believed something was wrong.
There was some evidence that would have, that could indicate she had a miscarriage.
Do you believe she was pregnant?
I do. At some point, I do.
To your knowledge, was she pregnant?
We just don't know. She could have been, but also the results were inconclusive, so we really just aren't sure.
Prosecutors believe what happened between Ally Kostial and Brandon Theesfeld is a cautionary tale.
Now, I can't imagine how there could be any way possible that Ally could have known that Brandon Theesfeld was capable of doing what he did to her. If she had any idea that this is what this person was capable of, she would never have gotten in that truck. I think love can blind us to certain things that other people can see that we can't.
Brandon Theesfeld's family chose not to participate in our broadcast. His mother asked his attorney to share these words.
When I heard Brandon was being spoken to by the police, I still had no single thought that it could be him. Now, after 2 years and knowing more of the details of their relationship, I'm heartbroken for every person this impacts and crushed that our son did not share with us any of the turmoil he was trying to manage. I encourage every parent to regularly sit down with their children, teenagers, young adults, and discuss with them that there will never be anything too big, too complicated, too out of control that they cannot tell you about. We will always pray for the family and friends of Ally Kostial.
Cindy and Keith are holding on to their memories.
How are you doing?
It's the quietest moments that are the most haunting.
She was my life, my everything.
For her friends, Ally's love for sunsets still shines through.
Ally, what are you doing?
Taking a picture for Sunsets by Ally. Follow it. So every time we see a sunset or a pink sunset, we're like, that's Ally.
And we just try to live for her and bring her light into the world.
"48 Hours. Don't miss an episode.